Hey, check it out, we're actually at the music stage. Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Dean from Electronisounds. Happy Friday, and welcome to episode 6 of how to write a dub techno track inside of the AKAI Force. Stick around, today we're gonna actually get some music going. Okay guys, let's get something actually going inside of the Force today. What we're going to do is we're going to start by laying down a 4 on the floor kick drum pattern. And this is our kick track here. And I've gone through the kick drums before we started filming today. We have this one here, but the one next to it is one tiny little bit longer, and it has a little tiny little bit of a rhythmic element to it that sort of is going to help us establish the groove. So I'd like to make this kick drum our main kick drum and not this one here. And how we're going to do that is I'm just going to slide, well, we don't need to move anything around, but to keep things like neat and orderly, we're going to keep our main kick for the whole track as the very first pad on the kick track. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the second one, put it over here, then I'm going to copy this one and make it the main kick. Then I'll copy this one and put it where that main kick used to be and delete it from over here. And now we've got the kick that I want to use as our main kick right there on the first pad on the kick drum track. All right, sorry about the camera movement, you guys. This is really difficult to, get an overhead shot of the Force. If I put the camera on the desk and then I touch the Force, it wiggles the camera as we saw yesterday. And now I'm sitting next to like the camera on a microphone tripod with a big boom arm, but like as I move it all, it moves the camera. I'm all hardwired in again, which is really uncomfortable, and I'm sitting at a weird angle, which is also really uncomfortable. So I apologize for the shakiness of the camera right off the jump, guys. What we're going to do is go ahead and put in a 4 on the floor kick pattern, and I'm going to just double click up in this empty clip spot to make that happen, and we'll click clip. And then you can see right here that our loop length is 8 bars by default. We're going to go ahead and change that, I think, to 4 bars for now. And if we go to the events tab of the clip, I can now start, zooming in. If I hold the knobs button down and I press screen, now it's going to give me some zooming and some scrolling ability with the knobs. And that will be a little bit helpful as we're negotiating these notes. We're going to go ahead and we can also use our finger, as long as we have the select tool selected. And I like to kind of just zoom in with my finger a lot of the time. We're going to go ahead and select the pencil tool, and we're going to start putting in the kick drum. Okay, so there's a kick drum on quarter notes here, basically. And we're going to sort of zoom out so that we can see all of those, and we can see that this is, 1 bar. Here's the downbeat for measure 2, downbeat for measure 3, downbeat for measure 4. I'm going to use the select tool. I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to click edit end, and I'm just going to go ahead and like bring those out so that I can see a little better that this is our, kick drum. That's just a visual. We didn't need to change it anywhere from 16th notes. We could have left it, but as we're writing the patterns, that just makes a little bit more sense to me visually, so that's how I do it. Now we're going to copy this out across all 4 bars. We're going to hit shift and we'll hit duplicate. Now we'll do nudge and we'll just click that one so that it starts on the downbeat of measure 2. We'll click shift and we'll click duplicate again. We'll nudge that over to the downbeat of measure 3, shift, duplicate, and then there we have it. Now, if I press launch over here, we're going to launch this clip and we're going to hear that kick drum. I'm going to take a look at the screen to make sure I'm not getting too loud of a recording level. Cool. So we can either hit stop all down here, or we can hit stop up here to stop that clip playing. What let's go ahead and do is let's put this secondary kick as a turnaround at the end of these 4 bars, shall we? Let's go ahead and zoom in, and let's select our pencil tool and just add a note there. And what I'd like to do is select, actually we're not going to change the velocity on that. I'll change it on the sample itself. Now these are notes are overlapping, as you can see. Visually, I'll just change the endpoint there. It doesn't really make a difference, to be honest, but you know, visually I like to do it this way. Let's go ahead and start playing this clip, and we'll hear that extra kick coming in on the turnaround there. Cool. And what let's do, rather, is go ahead and stomp. I want, when this kick drum hits, to silence this kick drum here. And what we're going to do, guys, is we'll just go to edit, and I'll tap the pan that I'd like to edit. We're going to go to the master page, and down here at the bottom there's a row for mute target. And so if I tap this pan, the top of the screen is going to tell me that that's pad A01, and if I tap this pad, it's going to tell me that it's A02. So I want to make sure that these pads don't ever play at the same time, and that way the reverb tails that are built into these sounds won't overlap each other and create any additional mud in the mix. So when this kick drum hits, it should shut off this kick drum. And again, this is pad A02, so I'll select this pad A01. When you hit, you should make sure that pad A02 is turned off. And we'll do the opposite for pad A02. We'll make sure that it turns pad A01 off. And now the reverb tails on those won't conflict with each other. Go back to clip, and we can see here what we're working with. That should sound smoother. Fantastic, it does. We'll go ahead and stop here, and I'm just going to bring the volume down on our accent kick a little bit. We'll go edit, and I'll tap this pad, right? Now we can go over to the master section, and I can just touch the volume on this pad, whoops, and bring it down a little. You can see that we've only affected this pad here. There are other ways to adjust the volume inside of this. You can get to a big mixer for the individual pads. I really like to do it this way, for now at least. Let's bring this a little bit lower in the mix. Now, one of the things that's also really awesome about the Force, guys, is that every single pad has its own filter settings built into it. So we can take this accent pad, but this accent kick sound, this kick that I'm using as an accent kick, and we can maybe it's got a low pass filter on it by default, a 2-pole low pass filter. If I bring the cutoff on this down, we'll bring some of the high end down on this, like shave some of the high frequencies out of the sample. Let's see you see what I mean? As we go way down, you hear all those highs disappear. This is another way to create, like variations in the sound. So here, how this kick here is brighter now, and this one is darker per se. I don't think we need to make it quite that dark. Let's set it at like 100 and play the clip and see how that sounds. Go back to clip mode so you can kind of see what we're looking for. We're looking for this turnaround to be ace. Okay, there's a little bit too much variation in the sound there, so I'm gonna click edit, and I'll tap the pad that I want to edit. We're gonna go to the filter page, and I'm gonna bring this cutoff maybe to 110, and we'll just listen. Maybe a little bit hotter. Let's try 117. Fantastic. Maybe just 120 for now. What I'm trying to do is just trying to create a really smooth sounding turnaround with that kick so that you don't necessarily hear like pauses in the samples per se. We'll go back to the matrix view, which is sort of my default view, and we'll go ahead and add maybe the bass next. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and click over to track 4, which is our bass track. I'm going to go into notes mode so that we've got our bass samples here. Actually, we're probably going to need to turn the bass down in the mix a little bit. So I'll do that now. I'm going to go to the mixer. I'm just going to click that track for the bass so that it's highlighted, and I'll turn that down just a little bit. This might be a good time to check the volume on our mix as well, and just make sure that we're completely in line and not clipping our mix. So I'm going to go ahead and play, and we'll see the volume on the kick drum, and I'll adjust that as necessary. Yeah, we're already clipping on the kick drum. So what we're gonna do is a couple of things, guys. We're gonna go ahead and turn the volume down on the mixer for the kick drum. We'll put this maybe at like -3. And then I'm going to, let's see here, go to this individual sample by, whoops, I'm on the bass track. So I'll select, excuse me, track 1, and I will hit edit, and I'll touch that kick drum. We'll go to master, and I can bring the volume down on this maybe by 2 decibels, and then I can bring the volume on this one down by about 2 decibels to match that one. While we're here, I'll go ahead and just turn the other kick drums down to about -5, so that they're just sort of a little bit more in line with the overall volume of the track here, and won't come screaming through the mix later as, you know, we're touching stuff. Let's go ahead and see what that level looks like now. From the very beginning stages, you want to make sure that your levels are in order and that you're not clipping and that you're giving yourself a little bit of headroom to work along the way. We're not going to be using any limiters or maximizers on the master track. We're just going to be really careful along the way to keep our levels in line. So let's go ahead and launch this clip and check our mixer again. If I touch down here where the actual numbers are, it resets those. And now we can see that our kick drum is hitting at about -4 decibels. That's about exactly where I would like it to be, actually. So we're looking a lot more in line here. I'm gonna go ahead and touch the top row and scoot it over so that I can take a look at our master track. I'll touch that output and I'll just give a look there. We're hitting about Sorry about that. I hit the stop on the camera when I meant to hit the stop on the Force. So we're hitting about -4 decibels on the master output right now, which is right where I want to be. I want to go ahead and take a moment to put an EQ on the master output. So while we're over on the master page, I'm going to click the inserts button, and you can see outputs 1 will allow me to put, 1 and 2 will allow me to put 4 effects of my choice on there. I'll double tap in the selection window, and we're going to choose that Air Para EQ. For those of you who remember the end of episode 5, we put the Air Parametric EQ on every single track, and then we hit the edit button, went to page 2, and turned on these filters. We're going to turn the low frequency filter to remove any frequencies below about 29.5 hertz. We're going to turn this to a 24 decibel filter. You'll hear now that this really shouldn't have a lot of effect on the sound because we're just eliminating super low frequencies that your ears can't really hear that well and that speaker systems can't really reproduce that well. So actually it's not launching because I'm still in the master section, guys. So we'll, back on out of here. I'll slide back over to the, regular view, and now we can launch that clip. Go back to volume. There's our kick drum volume and our master track. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, you guys. Remember, if you guys remember at the end of the episode yesterday, episode 5, when I talked about the EQs and why we're doing this and how it allows you to get more headroom in your mix and get a little bit, louder overall mix in general without losing, your sonic elements. This was hitting at -4 decibels, and then we removed those super low frequencies that didn't need to be there, and now it's sitting at -463 decibels. So we've literally given ourselves an extra 0.63 decibels of headroom in the mix by doing that right on that one track. So these little tiny things add up, and in the end, we end up with a much cleaner and a much louder track that speaker systems won't have to fight so hard to reproduce. We're going to scroll back over here, and let's see, we'll go back to the matrix and the launch mode, which is kind of my default. We're going to go back to trying to put in a bass part. So I'll go ahead and play this, and we'll scroll over to the bass. I'm going to take a look at the camera, make sure that I'm sending you guys enough level. I think it might need to be a little hotter. I'm going to turn that up. Let's see. That looks a little better. Sorry, I'm moving a little slow because I'm super hardwired in with the mic and the headphones. Okay, so if we go over to the bass track, right, and we click note, here's our bass samples, and we can see how these are starting to fit with this kick drum. Hopefully it's not going to be too loud. If it is, we'll fix that. They're not, you know, like leveled to be even in volume or anything yet. There's our main bass. Let's just go ahead and get that going as a loop for now. Let's we'll do a stop here, and yeah, this is the distorted version, and this is kind of like, yeah, this really deep, saturated version. What let's do, guys, is let's consider this bass here to be our main bass. And let's do the same thing with this as we did with the kick. Let's just put our main samples as the very first pad. So what we'll do is I'm going to copy this one, just put it someplace else for now. Then I'll copy the first one, and I'll put it where that one was, and I'll copy this one and put it back there, and then I'll delete that one. I hope that made sense, guys. And now our main bass sample is the first pad. Fantastic. Now you hear how it's just ringing out all the way every time I touch the sample. Sometimes you want that. A lot of times, like with a one shot, you're going to want that. But a lot of times with loop content, when you're working with it on a drum track and not in the clip mode, you're going to want this to not play all the way every single time you hit the note, but rather only when you are pressing down on the note. And this is going to give us precise control over the end time of this sample. What we'll do is we'll hold edit and we'll just touch that. Okay, so because we want to edit this pad, we're going to go ahead and go to the LFO and modulation tab. And up here, there's an option to turn the sample from a one-shot play mode to a note-on play mode. And this means now that it's only going to play the sample when I'm holding the note. There's a little bit of, like you can hear the sample letting up, and we can fix that by just adjusting the release time on the amplitude envelope of that sample. I'm going to put it at about 10, and we'll see what that does. Make it a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and leave it at 15 for now, and let's go ahead and program a sequencer clip to hold this note down. What we'll do, guys, is we're going to go back into the matrix. We're going to double tap here on the bass to start a clip, right? And then I will hit clip to go into this clip. Currently, if I go to the clip page, we can see that our clip is set to 8 bars. I've got it set to 8 bars by default. And for now, we're going to go ahead and just turn that back down to a 4 because we're working with a 4-bar loop at this point. We're going to click the event tab, and we're already on the select mode, so I can kind of just zoom in there. Now, our sample is on pad A1. I'm going to put the pencil tool on, and I'm going to put a dot there. I'm going to highlight this, right? Whoops. I'm actually going to undo twice because I didn't have that on the downbeat. We'll go ahead and make sure we get this on the downbeat. Select the pencil tool and put that there. Now I'll go ahead and hold this, and we're on edit end. And I'm just going to scroll this all the way to the end of the 4 bars, and we'll see what happens when I launch this clip. Check the volume on the screen of the camera here. How we doing? Maybe it could be a little bit louder still. I hope that's not too loud. That looks all right. Let's go over to the mixer page and take a look at these. I'll reset the numbers by just, tapping on those numbers. Currently our kick is sitting at -4 decibels and our bass is sitting at -5. That's pretty darn good. I'm going to turn this down just a tiny little bit, maybe 1 click less rather, and then we're going to go ahead and stop. Now we're going to do some interesting setup right from the jump. We're going to do a tiny little bit of sidechain compression with the kick drum and the bass. So how we're going to do this, guys, is if I go to the inserts and the inserts in the I/O page here of the mixer, on the kick drum, we're going to select the second effect slot, and we're going to double tap this, and we're going to scroll way down until we get to the mother ducker section. And we've got a mother ducker input and then the mother ducker itself. What we want is we want to select the input because the kick drum is going to trigger the sidechain compression on the mother ducker. And if you click the edit button, you'll see that there's really not much to do here other than choose, what bus you want to work with. We can set up about 8 different ducking, configurations. But right now, we're just going to need the one. So we've got the mother ducker on the kick drum. And if I go to the bass ins and outs, right, and I click that and double click here, and when we scroll down, we can select the mother ducker, select, okay, and then if we edit this, we can make some settings here. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and play this, and we'll see that we're already getting a little bit of sidechain compression. I don't see that, okay. How this is working is that every time, see if I can stop this, every time the kick drum is hitting, we're going to duck the volume very, very slightly on the bass loop, on the bass channel of all the bass sounds that we program through the whole track, basically. Every time the kick drum hits, we're going to duck the bass sound, I mean, just tiny, tiny little bit. And this is going to help our kick drum punch through all of the other sounds in the mix and continue to be, you know, the hottest sound in the mix. So when you see these settings over here, there's the one second from the right says, reduce or reduction, and you can see the more that, visually goes down, the more we're actually ducking. And we want to set the control so that it's barely ducking at all. So we can do that. It's ducking a little bit more than I would like it to be ducking by default. So we'll turn the threshold down so that it's not so aggressive. And now you can see that that reduction isn't really reducing near as much as it was before. I've got the threshold set to 3.87 now instead of the default like negative 3.87 rather than their default -6. We're gonna leave the attack where it's at. I'm gonna stop and we're gonna adjust the release here. Now our tempo is 104 BPM, and I find that if you sync the release times of your compressors and like pretty much everything in your mix, if it's got a millisecond setting, you can, sync that millisecond setting to be mathematically in line with your mix. And I use a website called musiccalculator.com. I'll punch in our tempo and then I'll see what sort of time division the milliseconds equal out, and we'll go ahead and change that number to be a number that's mathematically in time with our beat. Hang on one second and I'm going to get that number. Okay, I've looked up the number, and at 104 BPM, a 30-second note is 72.115 milliseconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this release time as close to 72.115 milliseconds that we can. We'll hold Shift, and we can either choose 72 or 73. If we round it, it's closer to 72, so I'll leave that there. We'll give this a play. This won't be a real distinct difference that you'll hear right off the jump, but it'll be just another one of those tiny little things that adds up along the way to a really polished mix in the end. That sounds exactly like I want it to sound. Now we've got a really nice kick that's punching through that bass line. I think I might go back to the mixer. I'm on headphones today, so it's going to be like a little bit of adjusting through the process as we go. I'm going to turn that bass down a tiny bit. Actually, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to pause and hear this on my speakers real quick, and then we'll see if I need to make any adjustments that way. Okay, I'd like to bring the bass down like 2 more clicks, and then we're going to go to the insert effect page on the bass. We're going to go to that EQ. I'm going to just open up the EQ, and on the lows here, it's by default set to a 100 Hertz low shelf filter. I'm just going to leave that alone, but we're going to turn this down to -1 and shave just a tiny little bit of lows off the bass so that it's not competing quite as much with the kick drum. I'm also going to go to the second page and maybe bring the low cut frequency up to 42 Hertz, so we get just a tiny little bit more of that low mud out of the bass. That's really starting to groove already. Fantastic. Now if we go back to matrix mode and launch mode here, excuse me, you can see that we've now got a kick and we've now got a bass. Let's go ahead and double tap in the tops section, and that track is, let's see here, we'll go to note. Okay, I'm going to turn this track by default down in the mixer a little bit so that it matches maybe more the levels that we've already got going. We'll launch this clip. Cool, we're going to bring this down a little bit more in the mix still. And we'll stop. Now, these are the tops. We're not going to want like a lot of low end on these tops because there's no snares, there's no kicks here. We're going to go back to the insert page and we're going to touch that EQ. We'll go to the edit screen and we're going to bring the low frequency on this low cut filter like way up by default. Let's pick, I don't know, how about 332, and then cool. That's going to make sure that there's absolutely like no, super low frequencies, maybe inaudible low frequencies that are hanging out in these samples. And that way they'll be a lot cleaner in the mix. We're going to go back to the mixer. And let's see here. We're going to grab our Mother Ducker plugin that we've got, that we adjusted the release time and the threshold on. And I'm going to save this as a temporary preset for this project. We're going to call this Spider Temp. And now, as we're making the track, anytime I want to, sidechain something, I can bring up this preset, and I can have that release time set to 72 milliseconds by default and whatnot, and that'll just save us an extra step. So if we go back to the if we go back to the mixer, and I want to put the Mother Ducker on the tops by default, we're going to be ducking, every time the kick drum hits, we'll be ducking whatever happens on this channel by like a tiny little bit. I mean, we're talking like 1 or 2 decibels, guys. I'm not trying to get like some serious EDM pumping or anything like that. We're just getting really, really gentle pumping to help our kick drum be the most prevalent thing in the mix. That's the sort of how I produce. My drums typically hit pretty hard, and that's one of the reasons why. So now we can just hit the open button, and I can choose the Spider Temp. Double tap down. There we go. Load. And now, it didn't save my settings. That's a bummer. Did I do that wrong? Spider Temp. Load. Well, we're not going to mess with that now. That's either a glitch on my part or a glitch on the unit's part. I'm pretty sure it's worked before, though. So what I'll do is, let's see here. Cool. We'll adjust the threshold on this a little bit more later, but the other one was at like -3, so I'm going to set that one to -3. We've got our release set to 72 milliseconds. I'll play the track here, and we'll see about which of these, excuse me, like my dog and cat hair kind of, and eyelashes seem to stick to these pads a lot, and I don't want that to be in the video. Sorry, guys. Oh, there's the loop, right? So maybe we just want to put the loop in first and kind of recreate, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So what we'll do is we'll go to the matrix. I've already got our clip here. We're going to hit the clip button to get into the clip. We'll touch the clip tab, and we'll make this 4 bars instead of 8 bars. And we're going to do 2 things. We're going to see how the sample holds out all the way. When I hit it, we're going to hit Edit. We're going to touch that. We'll go to the LFO modulation page, and we're going to change this sample from a 1-shot to note-on mode. You follow? I'm going to go ahead and touch these, and any of the other ones in here that are loops and not 1-shots, I'm going to put to note-on mode. That's a 1-shot. That's a loop. So I'm going to put that onto note-on mode. And now we have more control over these. They'll only play while we program a note to hold them down. That's a loop, so we'll put it on note-on mode. That's a loop. We're going to put that on note-on mode. Fantastic. We've done quite a bit of stuff already, guys. Let's go ahead and save. Touch the project there. Okay, so we're going to put in a MIDI note to hold down Spider's hat loop the whole time. And what we'll do is we're going to hit clip, and we're going to go to the events page where I can put this in manually. Of course, I could, just hold things down and play these things in. But what I'm really looking for, because I'm making a finished track here, guys. I'm not just having fun and making a groove. I'm looking for that, complete, precision that I can get by doing everything, this way. So here we have that loop now holding out for the full 4 bars. I'm going to hit launch, and let's hear what that sounds like. So you guys will hear right off the jump that everything is just lining up, and like that's just because we did all of that really careful editing to where we made sure that everything started, right on the downbeat. Everything came from a mathematically generated MIDI clock, okay? Everything was, coming from the Grooverider app, so it's already in time. So as long as we, cut things on the very, very beginning start point like that, when you start putting things back together, for the most part, they should pretty much line up. I'm going to play this and we'll adjust the level on this sound just a little bit. I'm going to hit, let's go to the mixer first. Hold the volume here, and I'll touch these numbers again to have them resetting. I'm going to bring our overall track volume on the tops down by a couple of clicks. That's sounding a little bit more like what I want. We're going to go over to the Sends tab and hit the Inserts button. And here we have, let's see if we, the Sends rather, and right, okay. So then to get to those sends, I have to scroll over. Here we have return, so basically send 1, send 2, send 3, and send 4. So we have, by default, a reverb on send 1 and a delay on send 2. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move those down a click in the mix, and you'll see why in one sec. So we're going to hit this. We're going to put that here, rather, air reverb, so that it's not the first thing in the chain, but now the second thing in the chain. We're going to double tap this, and if you can guess what I'm going to put here, it's the Air Parametric EQ. We're going to open that up, we'll go to the second page, and we're going to turn our filters on. But what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to filter out all of the low frequencies from ever entering this this reverb. I'm going to make sure that like nothing below like 400 hertz enters the reverb at all, and that way we're not going to get any mud or extra, you know, like competing frequencies coming through this reverb. And then there we have it. We'll adjust the reverb setting in just a minute. I'm going to put the air delay now. I don't want the diffusion delay, just the regular delay. Cool. And then I'll put the EQ, para EQ above it, right? Okay. I'll open that up and we'll turn the filters on the second page. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure that no frequencies below around, you know, anywhere from, say, I might, you know, change this later depending on as we sculpt the mix. But I usually start between about 400 and 600 hertz, anywhere in there, to shave off all the frequencies below that from actually entering our effects chain. So let's see here now. If I scroll back over, I can actually, on the tops channel, which is our hats and rides and stuff, I can put a little bit of the default reverb and the default delay on those and start, you know, getting sort of a, like start sculpting a sonic, you know, vibe here. Let's see here, go over to the Sends page and hit the Inserts. I can get back to those effects. And then we can actually open that up. And here's the reverb. It's got presets inside of it, small reverbs and large reverbs, empty rooms. Something we can do to kind of decide how we're going to go with the reverb, or maybe check out if any of those presets sound good, per se, is we could like solo the hats track. Did that work? Let's see. Oh, I'm in the master page, so it's going to be a little odd. Got to get back out of the master page to do that kind of stuff. So let's solo by hitting the solo button, and we'll just solo these. We'll go to the Sends. We'll turn that down for now. We'll go to the other page here, and now I can get to this. Sorry, I did that wrong. It's Sends on the, hold on. There we go. Okay, so here's that actual reverb, right? If I press play, now I can adjust the settings of the reverb, right? It's not going to press, okay, I see, because I'm in the master mode by default. So if we get out of there, and now I launch it and scroll over, it's a little on, but it is what it is. We'll open up the air reverb here, and I can like scroll through some of these presets. Whoops. Oh, for Pete's sake. Sorry about that, guys. Double tap there. But I don't want to, let's see here. Maybe how about basic large? Let's try that. And let's see if we go back to the mixer here and scroll back over, and go to the Sends, and see what that's, really crank that up. Yeah, I don't like the sort of fizziness that's putting on the sound. So if I scroll back over and I go to the Inserts and open up that reverb again, Aha, that's a lot more like the vibe that I'm in the mood for. We're gonna take the cutoff down on that to about, I don't know, 17.2. Yeah, and I'm not gonna make any more adjustments on that. That's nice. We'll just hit, actually scroll back over there. And now I can turn this way back down and get it in line. Like, pretty gentle, frankly. We just want to turn it up a lot to have, you know, really hear the reverb that we're setting into the mix there. We'll do the same thing with the delay. I'm gonna literally crank this up and we'll go, ooh, that's already sounding pretty good, fantastic. Let's scroll over here and go to the inserts and open up this delay, edit, and double click that to get into the preset menu. Let's try triplet dub delay right off the jump. What about if we change this to eighth notes dotted? Yeah, that's a lot more what I'm in the mood for. We're gonna turn this mix up to quite a bit more wet, and we'll turn the feedback up to about 50% for now. Cool. Now we can just scroll this back over, go to the sends, and turn that way down so that it's barely in the mix at all. Just a little bit of extra rhythmic stuff happening there. You definitely want to take the time in the beginning of a project to set these things up and make sure that you're getting, you know, like the kind of vibe in your effect sends right from the jump that you want to be getting. Because the rest of the track is all going to be sitting on the foundation that we're building right now. And if we don't have a strong foundation, then we're not going to have a strong track in the end, if that makes any sense. I'm going to go ahead and unsolo now those tops, and we'll hear what this is sounding like in the mix and make some adjustments. I'm going to bring this hats track down just a little for now. Cool. Let's go ahead and hit the matrix mode, double click in our snares and claps so that we can add a clip there. We're going to hit the clip mode, go into clip and turn this into a 4-bar loop. I'm already selected here on our snares and claps track. So we've got snares and claps. So let's see here. Which do we want to maybe work with first? Boy, I really like that one. That's my favorite so far, guys. Oh, this is amazing with the variety. Okay, so there. Absolutely. Let's do a back and forth kind of a thing happening here. Let's go to the matrix, right? Let's see if I can do this. Let's hit record arm and let's arm track 3. I'm gonna hit record up here to make sure that we're in record mode. Let's see, this is the dry one. Yeah, cool, too. So I'm gonna wait until this gets to measure 7, and then I'm gonna touch that clip. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Record again. There we go. That's sounding great. I'm gonna turn this down in the mix a little bit. Go to our sends page, we can maybe send a little bit of the snares and claps track to our reverb and delay. Ooh, maybe a little bit less delay, a tiny amount. Maybe a little bit more of these, I mean less even. So our send 1 is to the reverb and our send 2 is to the delay. We've already got kind of a neat groove happening here. I'm gonna bring the snares down a little bit. Alright, this is sounding pretty good, you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and stop. I'm gonna put this on my speakers real quick and see if I need to make some adjustments before we move on. Okay, guys, so the first thing that I noticed is that we're pushing me. these chords out of the way. We're pushing our master output just a little bit too hard, and that is clipping just a little tiny bit. Now, I'm liking the mix of our, sounds so far. So what I'm gonna do is turn every track down in the mix by an equal amount. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, clicks on that track, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, clicks on this track, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and also on the bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to launch the clip and double check that the master's doing okay. It's still a little bit hotter than I'd like to be. I'm going to go ahead and bring the bass down by 1 more, and I'm going to bring the snares and claps down by 3. I'm going to go to our EQ on the kick drum, and I'm going to bring this low shelf filter down to about maybe 85.5 hertz, and bring this down a decibel just to shave a tiny bit more lows off of the kick drum so we're not pushing too much low end in the mix. I think we're gonna bring the snares down just 1 more click. All right, let's see here. If we've done quite a bit, so we'll go save. We'll save this project. What let's do next is see if we can't sculpt the dirt a little bit in this mix. We'll go to Matrix, and we're gonna go over here to our Effects tab. Let's see here. I like this one maybe as my favorite so far. Let's see, these effects. Let's go ahead and go back to the mixer and go to the inserts on our effects tab, and we'll open up that EQ, and then we're going to go to the second page where we can adjust these filters. I'm going to take out any frequencies on the effects track below like about 100 hertz so that we don't get super low rumble affecting our kick drum and our bass drum. Yeah, it's going to clean up these textures quite a bit already. But since this is going to be our main texture, I'm going to hit, well, at least I'm going to try to make it our main texture. I'm going to hit edit and touch that pad, and then I'm going to go to its filter page. Every single pad has its own filter settings, you guys. How cool is that? So we're going to try to set this to like a high pass filter, 2-pole. And I'll bring the cutoff down, and now the higher I bring the cutoff, the more lows we'll be shaving out of this sound. I just want this kind of subtle, noisy vinyl texture in the back of our mix. Let's see if we can't get that seeded into the mix a little bit. What we'll do is we'll go to our effects tab. There's already a clip there, fantastic. I'm gonna hit clip, and then we'll make this, I'll tap the clip in the upper left, and we'll make it a 4-bar clip. I'm gonna touch the second page and go to the events. We're on the little magnifying glass icon, and I can sort of zoom in here. I could use the knobs for this as well, but that's not really part of my workflow yet. It might become part of my workflow over time, but for now, that's sort of, what it is. And I've now highlighted that, and we're just going to edit the end. I'm going to scroll this out for all the 4 bars there. And then one last thing is, like, if you hear now, these are all set to, if I hit them, they're just going to play the entire sample, and we don't want that. We only want it to play as I'm holding the note down. So I'll hit edit, and I'll touch that, and then we'll go to the LFO modulation tab and turn that to a note on play mode. I'll do that with all of these textures here. Note on, note on, note on. The other stuff like this, we do want to play out like in its entirety. These are crash cymbals. These are our kick impacts and stuff. Fantastic. So we'll double stop. Matrix. Clip. Mixer. Volume. Whoop. Mixer. got something not quite right here with this track. I'm going to pause and figure that out. Yeah, we do. If there's a simple error, I actually put the note to hold to actually trigger this sample instead, because I'm used to sort of working with that pad at this time. So we can just fix that really easily. If we go to the clip, right, okay, it's highlighted on A1, but if I select the note, right, and the one we want to trigger, if I hit this, it'll like, it shows us there that I'm highlighted C15. Okay, so if we go down and bring this note, I can hit transpose, and we can just scroll this note up until it's actually triggering this pad now instead of this pad here. My bad, guys. And there we have it. So if we go to edit, now I can start actually getting this in the mix. We can bring this vinyl noise way down in the mix. Yeah. I'm going to go back to the filter page, and I'm going to start removing more of the low end on the vinyl noise until it kind of seeps into the mix like I'm thinking. Here it's getting a little bit more subtle now. Let's see here. I'd like to put a little bit of mother ducker on the vinyl noise. If we hit edit and touch this pad, we can put an effect just on this pad up to 4. Okay, so if I hit the effects and we scroll way down and we select the mother ducker, you can already hear we're getting some rhythmic pumping there. I'm going to set our release to 72 milliseconds, which we found was 1/32nd note at 104 BPM. And now I can adjust the amount of that pump by turning this threshold up or down. If I want it super dramatic, you can hear now we're getting that pump, and you can see that every time the kick drum is hitting, it's taking the volume down on our vinyl and creating that pump. So if I bring the threshold up, we make it a lot more gentle of a pump and more subtle, to where you're not really hearing a pump at all. But you can see that it's still ducking this channel a tiny little bit every time that kick drum hits. And this you'll adjust to taste. The rhythmic element of it all sort of helps the groove in the mix, in my opinion. I think that'll work. And let's see, if I go to edit and touch this, we can bring the volume on this down a little bit more. And we can go back to the filter page and maybe bring the lows off a little more and just seat it way back in the mix there. If I go to the effects tab on just this, I can send this to maybe like 7 each of our delay and reverb, just to kind of help it sit in the same sonic environment that the other samples in the mix are sitting in. You can hear we're kind of getting a congruent sound to the whole mix at this point. And let's see what we can do next. Let's go ahead and continue to build on this groove by adding in a ride cymbal. What I typically will do at the beginning like this is I'll just keep building up, this first loop, and then we'll start disassembling that into an arrangement. But you'll sort of like be out, at least I will sort of be adding as much stuff to this as I can, and keep it sounding good and building the groove, and then we'll sort of work on the arrangement at a different time per se. So I want to go to note mode so that I can get back to my hats and my rides and stuff, and I want to find like a nice ride. Ooh. Yeah, this is like Spider's original ride pattern here, and let's go ahead and put this in, shall we? If we make sure that our track is selected, which it is, and we hit clip, then you can see that as I touch the pads, it's going to highlight in the sequencer which pad we're highlighting. And so what I'd like to do is zoom in just a little bit, and then use the pencil tool to put a dot there on the beginning on that track, and now we're editing the end of this. This is only a 1-bar loop. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll hit shift and go duplicate, 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 and now zoom. Try to get a little more familiar with these knobs. It moves the scroll, which I think is what, you know, this is slow and silly. It just, you know, might be a way to make this work differently, but, you know, for now, I'm certainly getting on with the fingers pretty well. Here we go. That's not bad at all. What let's do is go edit, right? And we'll touch this this ride part. We'll go to the filter, and I'm gonna scroll over and select a high pass 2-pole filter. I'm gonna bring this cutoff to about 50 to start with, and we'll be shaving some more lows off of this ride so that it'll sit right in the top frequencies of our mix. Cool. I'm gonna go back to the master tab here, and on our ride, I'm gonna bring that volume down. All right, let me hear this over my main speakers and see how I'm feeling about the mix here. Okay, we're sounding pretty good. I think I'd like to get a little bit of stereo separation happening between the ride and the hats. So here's our hats loop, and I'm going to go pan. Let's pan that like just very gently 5 left, just a little bit of extra, you know, separation between these two sonic elements, and we'll pan that ride 5, and then I'll bring the volume on the ride down just a tiny bit more as well. Maybe pan that 10 to the right, a little more separation, and bring the volume on that ride down a little more. Maybe bring volume on the hats down just a click. And let's see here on the ride, got that filter happening, and then I think I'd like to bring a little bit of the high frequencies down on this ride. So I can put up to 4 individual effects just on the ride sample. We're gonna go ahead and click that, and we're gonna choose, how about we choose that Air Para EQ again? And how about we go over to that second page, turn on that high frequency filter, leave it at 12 decibels, but shave this down to like 16.3. I'm also gonna, just for fun, turn this up and shave some more lows off here. That's starting to really gel together. I like the way that sounds. All right, we'll go matrix and launch, which is kind of my default, you know, overview mode per se. And let's see about what we can do with these chords. We'll go to the mixer and maybe bring the volume on this track down a bit so that we don't blast everybody's ears out right off the jump, you know. And we'll go to note mode. And then here's all those chords we've got. Hope this isn't too loud. Got so many options. What I want to do for this, you know, basic groove that we're starting here is find like something really, really minimal, and like quiet and not distorted, so that we can build into the larger stuff from like this sort of a groove. So that's a little bit too distorted for it to be like the main starting point. I think it's probably going to be more something like that number 2 pad there. Let's compare the two of those. Ooh, those are real similar, but this one has like a sort of a tape hiss thing happening on it. So maybe these two could kind of like work together a little bit. Let's go ahead and move some things around. Let's copy this pad and just stick it over there. And we'll put this one here as our main pad. We're gonna put this one here next to it, and we'll put this one there, and then delete this. See how easy it was to just kind of move some stuff around depending on how you want to use this stuff? I love that. We could have like taken these out, maybe put them over here in the corner to separate them from these visually, you know what I mean? Any number, just however you want to lay it out. absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and launch that clip. Yeah, let's go ahead and put this in, and I'll alternate between these two. Let me go back to our matrix, right? And let's see, we've already got a clip there, and it's already in record mode. And it's already been recording in. That's, oh my goodness. What let's do is delete that and go. I often have difficulty with that, things accidentally getting, you know, tapped into the record arm. If you touch one of these buttons down here while record arm is, you know, selected, you'll be in trouble. So we'll go ahead and, you know, just put that on clip stop for now, I think. I'm going to go into launch mode, hold delete, and delete this clip here, right? I'm gonna play. Let's see if I can do this in real time. It's not super easy for me. We're gonna arm track 5, okay? Make sure that it's recording. I did that wrong, it's already recording, but that's okay. What we'll do is, I'm gonna hit note mode, right? It's a 4-bar loop, so on measure 3, I'm gonna tap this. Here we go. 8-bar loop here. And I'll just hit record again and it'll stop that. Now I think that that should be good, right? Cool. Let's go back to our mixer. I'm gonna turn these up. And I'm also gonna go to the sends, and here's our reverb send. Keeping in mind that some of these have reverb in them already, so we're not gonna wanna go nuts with the reverb here. We'll turn the delay up a little bit. A little more, maybe a lot, just so we can kind of hear what it's gonna be doing to the sound, you know? It's not sounding bad at all. All right, let's go back to volume and bring this up in the mix, I think. And if I go to matrix and if we go to clip, all right. What let's do here is let's stop this and let's get a little bit of stereo separation on these two stabs that I'm going back and forth between. We'll go edit and we'll tap this pad that we want to work with. We can go to the pan page or the master page. How about the master page here? And I'll just pan this one 5 left and this one 5 right. And now we've got just all that much more bit of stereo separation in our mix. Let's go back to the mixer and go to the inserts. And I'm gonna put the mother ducker on our chords. We're gonna put this like super, super, super gently so that you really can't hear it, but that it's still helping to kick punch through the mix. Now, again, if we bring the threshold down, you should actually hear the chords completely pumping rhythmically in time to the mix, you know? You can see that every time the kick hits, that it ducked this track by that amount there on the reduction, you know, setting. We just want to make this very, very subtle. We don't really want pumping, and we don't want you to hear anything with the chords that, you know, that this is on there. We just want that kick to keep punching through everything. So using this very subtly, yeah, way to go. Okay, at this point, let's go ahead and save. Okay, I've had another listen through my speakers, and I think that we're getting a little bit too much reverb baked into our snares and claps track. So I'm gonna go back to the mixer, and then on the sends here for our snares and claps, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn this reverb, maybe that one click, but turn this reverb down a click. And then on our actual snares and claps track here, if I select track 3, and these are already pretty baked in, actually. What happens if we just mute this? I mean, not mute it, rather, but don't send any of the claps and snares to the internal reverb. Yeah, it's a little bit cleaner, I think. I'm doing an alteration. I'm not alteration, but I'm doing a back and forth thing here between these two. Yeah, I think there's a little bit too much reverb baked into this sound for my liking. This is literally a sample that's just labeled snares and claps. So if we go into the menu and then go to sample edit, and there it is, you know, snares and claps. If I sort of grab that, I can highlight, you know, just everything but the transient there, and do a process and do a fade out. And then this way the baked in reverb on this sample will be less. We'll do that twice. I'm gonna bring this back to the start. I'm gonna make this a lot shorter. We'll do a process and discard. Save the meat of that sound, and we'll fade out the end of this sound here. Again, we're just trying to get rid of some of this baked in reverb on this particular sound. Fade out, process, fade out, but leaving some of it there. Okay, so. I think I'd like to bring the volume up on this second one a little bit. So we'll go to the master page, make sure we're on that pad. I can adjust the volume here. I think what let's do is, let's see here. On our main hats loop, which is that one there, I think we'll hit edit and go to the master page and bring the volume a tiny bit down. If I go over to the filter page, we can maybe click just a couple of clicks off of the default low-pass two-pole filter. Maybe bring that to 120 and just kind of sync that back in the mix a little bit by shaving off, I mean, the tiniest little bit of highs from it. Okay, let's go ahead and bring our claps down in the mix again so that it's more subtle. I often like to sort of mute and unmute stuff as I'm going to make sure that, you know, I'm happy with all the levels. Alrighty, let's click over to our synths track, which has some samples on it that are not chords. Let's bring the volume on this sample down, that's a little loud. Whew. What we'll do for the loop is we'll go to edit, and then we'll go over to the LFO modulation tab and turn that to a note on mode. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's what I figured. I often end up with stuff by accident. Let's go ahead and go back to launch mode here, and we'll just delete that. Cool. Mess around with this track if I go back to note mode, you know. Okay, let's put this on the 8th bar. What we'll do is we'll double click, excuse me, I'm in like record mode and whatnot. Stop and go back to launch. And I just want to, you know, edit this clip rather. And if we go into the events, okay, cool. And if we go into our notes here and play the clip, we can make this a 4, or rather, I want to make this an 8-bar clip. And we'll go to events. Two, three, and 8, 2, 3. it gets around to there. 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3. I think that'll work for now. Let's go to the mixer, and on the synths track, we'll go to the sends and turn up some reverb and delay on that. On the whole track, so every sample on this track will be getting those. Cool. Let's give it some more by default on that. We may adjust that later, you know, as we go. Give us a little bit back in the mix, eh? Cool. Let's go edit, and we'll touch that pad. We'll go to the master. I'm going to bring this down in the volume a little bit, and let's pan it like way extreme to the left. How about like 25 left? Cool, we're just getting a little bit more, you know, width and separation in our stereo image per se. And if we go to track 7, which is our effects track, we can put in like a crash on the downbeat or an impact on the downbeat or something. Let's go to the mixer and bring this volume way down, eh? Kind of like this one for now. So let's go ahead and put that in. If we go back to the matrix, and if I'm in record arm and this track is armed, you have that one, 2, 3, and I didn't get it, so we'll make sure that I do this time. I put it into overdub mode. Record again to get out of there, and if I go clip, we should see that I put that in. I can grab it, and if I want to, I can make it like a little bit longer visually, just so that I can see that that's a crash sample and that it holds out for an extended period of time per se. If we go to the edit, if we hold edit and just tap this pad here, I can go to its filter page. I can put on like a high pass filter, and I can remove all the lows from that crash cymbal. Put that at like 70 maybe. Okay, and now we can go to the master page, bring this way down in the mix, go to the effects page and send a lot of this sound to the reverb and the delay in the mix. See what that sounds like. Bring it down in the mix some more. A lot better. Maybe we give this a pan to the right by about 15 to further our stereo width and separation, so that the track doesn't have to fight so much to come through per se. Let's go to the mixer, take a look at the level here, maybe bring this down a tiny bit, and then effects track. All of our levels seem to be pretty much in line across here. I'm going to scroll this over and we'll take a look at our master channel, which is in fact clipping. Our master channel now is up to 0.99, which is about 1 decibel over where it should be. And the mix of the track is sounding pretty good. So what I'm going to do is turn every single track down by the same amount. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, click the next one, 1, 2, 3, click the next one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3, and finally 1, 2, 3. Now the level of our mix should be a little bit lower, but the actual mix itself should be the same. We go back to scroll over and take a look at our outputs 1 and 2. We can now see that our master is sitting about negative 2.29. Now it just clipped again, so we'll need to fix that. One of the ways that you can find out what is actually getting your clipping is by soloing and muting tracks. We're gonna go ahead and mute. I see, we can't do it when we're in the master section. That is so odd. So we'll scroll out of the master section and we're gonna like mute, because I think it's the clap and snares track. So I'm gonna let the groove play for a bit and we'll see how our actual level is. No, it still clips without them. So what we'll do, that's fine. What we'll do is we're gonna, we don't need to have anything soloed or muted at this time, good deal. We're gonna just literally do that same thing. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, turning everything down by the same amount, except for like the effects track. The cymbal's still a little too loud, so I'm gonna bring this down, more than that. Then we'll do that again. We want to keep the mix sounding super even. I'm gonna check the level on the screen here and see how I think we're still sending you guys a hot enough level that you can hear that okay. I think we're gonna bring the level on that down just a touch more. And then also, something we can do to maybe make that crash cymbal not so aggressive sounding and more, chill sounding for this dub techno vibe that we've got here, is maybe soften the attack on it a little, so it doesn't hit quite so much with the transient. We can go to the filter and envelope page, and here if we select attack, just scroll this in, and you can hear that the more I scroll it in, we're just creating a fade in at the beginning of that sound and taking off the transient. Maybe 15 will be better. Let's try that. If we go over to the master tab, I can even maybe pan that an extra 5 to the right for 20, and maybe bring this down a click in the mix for like negative 5.87. If I go to the filter page, we'll see that we've already got that high pass filter there. Maybe I'll take out a few, just a tiny little bit more of the lows there and bring that up to 75. And then lastly, maybe we'll bring the reverb on that up a little bit and bring it back in the mix still for now. All right. I don't want this one to be too long, especially after the hour and 50-minute editing session that we did the other day. But we've definitely got something started now, and you guys can get, a lot more of an idea of what we're actually creating here. Still gonna bring that crash down, I think. So we'll make sure it's highlighted, and it is. We go into note mode. Here's the sample we want to affect. I'll hit edit and just tap that. We'll go to that master, and I'll just turn this volume down right there. That's better for now, I think. Okay, guys. We'll meet you back here with episode 7. I'm probably going to take the weekend off and get a little bit of recouping happening. See if I can't get my energy level back up. And we'll probably see you guys again on Monday with episode 7. Thanks for watching, guys.